I think we're in a really interesting world right now with aligners in that we used to be, essentially there was one game in town, and for better or for worse, that's what it was. Now you've got options, and I think that's great. Options mean competition, which means either prices don't get driven up as much or it makes people innovate.
I'm Dr. Chris Setta, and I'm shining a light on the innovators of our profession to help transform your practice and inspire the future of our specialty. Welcome to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. On today's show, my guest is Dr. Christian Groth. Welcome back to Season 6 of Illuminate as we continue to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of the podcast. This episode comes to you a little later than planned as I've been busy settling into my new role at Hess Orthodontics. But I promise the wait will be worth it as we have a fantastic conversation lined up, the second in a series of interviews recorded during the AAO annual session in Philadelphia. Before we dive in, I'm looking forward to connecting with many of you at the upcoming Mother of Pearls conference here in Florida. If you'll be attending, please be sure to stop by and say hello, especially if we haven't had the chance to meet yet. And stay tuned, we'll be right back after we spotlight 2 innovators helping to shape the future of our profession. Today's Illuminate Spotlight is the Aligner Intensive Fellowship by Dr. Jonathan Nicozisis and Maz Moshiri. Since 2017, over 7,000 orthodontists have joined this peer-to-peer community with a satisfaction rate above 90%. Now reimagined and optimized, the course continues to expand with fresh content and cutting-edge aligner strategies. Learn more at alignerfellowship.com. Today, I'm thrilled to shine a light on an orthodontist and innovator from the Detroit metro area who's helping to lead the charge in digital orthodontics. Dr. Christian Groth is known for his thought leadership around 3D printing and aligner therapy, and he co-founded Motor City LabWorks, one of the most advanced digital orthodontic labs in the country. What I admire about Christian is how he's managed to innovate independently of any one company. While he's collaborated with groups like SureSmile and 3M Solventum, he's always maintained his own distinct brand, something I've come to appreciate through the thoughtful advice of the great Dr. David Sarver. As you'll hear on today's episode, this conversation is a chance to hear from one of the sharpest independent thinkers in our field and to consider how this approach might influence the way you practice. Well, welcome to the podcast. How are you today, Christian?
Doing great, Chris. Thank you very much. Very excited to be here.
I love hearing your voice on the radio here, a nice deep voice. Mine is maybe a little grovelly because we're on day 2 of the AAO, right?
Day 2 of 3, a little shorter than the past AAOs, but That doesn't mean that it's any less fun.
A little teaser, but why don't you tell everyone where we're at?
We are in Philadelphia.
That's right.
And the annual session, which is one of the best weekends of the year.
It is.
Connect with all sorts of people that you don't get to see very often.
Oh, yeah.
You know, maybe get some cocktails or sodas on someone else's dime.
Well said. I have not done any of that this weekend.
I haven't either. It was more of a, like, if I were to do it.
I believe you brought a delicious beverage. I see a bottle sitting in front of me.
Why
don't you tell everyone what we're drinking here?
We are drinking the Woodford Double Oaked.
Yes, double.
So you have the Double Oaked, which is taken and put into a secondary barrel. The Double Oaked is a secondary barrel.
It's like a barrel inside a barrel?
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 barrels. Yeah, so based on my research, it's aged 5 to 7 years and then another 2 years in a new barrel. So they go through 3 barrels. I can't get this in Michigan. And shout out to Henrik Brandt at 3Shape. He's the bourbon nerd on Instagram.
Thank you, Henrik.
And he said, you can find these in Philadelphia. So went out yesterday.
Well, I am super excited for this. Let's do a quick cheers if we can reach.
Yeah, the big table. We got arms. We're good.
And now we are going to taste the double Woodford Reserve.
Yeah, someone's going to have to come up with the triple oaked or the quad oak or something. Yeah. It's a good bourbon.
So what I'm getting a good amount of sweetness, which has to be from the corn, but a lot of oak elements.
Oak, well, that would make sense because it's double.
Right, double oak.
You know, it's funny to me because people who drink bourbon, I love bourbon. You know, Henrik kind of put me on this and I love it. I have way too much of it. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a collecting problem. And
I think I have that too.
Everyone says, hey, I get notes of vanilla and butterscotch and old leather. It's like, I get notes of bourbon. I taste bourbon.
That was Christian's description.
I get bourbon.
We got bourbon, all right.
This is bourbon. My palate's not refined enough to say, hey, I got stone fruits in here.
Well, Christian, I am super looking forward to this podcast today, so thank you for joining me. For those of you who don't know Christian, he's an orthodontist and an innovator based in the Detroit metro area who's helping lead the charge in digital orthodontics. Christian is known for his thought leadership around 3D printing and aligner therapy, as well as co-founding Motor City LabWorks, one of the most advanced digital labs in the country. So kudos to you, Christian. We have lots of great topics of conversation today, so please stay tuned. We're going to talk about how you joined a group practice in Michigan and the benefits of practicing in that setting. We're going to be talking about the origin story of Motor City LabWorks, which I'm super excited to hear about. We're going to talk about your recent push towards lab automation, right? AI integration and in-house appliance production. We're going to discuss why you believe it's time for orthodontists to break free from a liner brand dependency and think outside the box. And lastly, we're going to be talking about the current state and future of direct 3D printed aligners, which I heard a little bit about this weekend from Jeremy Manueli. So I'm excited to get your perspective too.
Yeah, great stuff.
Awesome. Christian, I believe you grew up in Detroit and come from a family of dentists. Is that right?
I do, yeah. So Detroit, well, everyone says they're from Detroit, but nobody's from Detroit. Eminem's from Detroit, but not a lot of other people are from Detroit. So yeah, outside Detroit, about 15 miles outside of Detroit. And the trivia fact of the day here is Detroit is the only city in the continental U.S. that you drive south into Canada.
Is that right?
Yeah, so if you're ever at bar trivia and that question comes up, it's Detroit. We take I-75 south. Into Windsor.
Windsor,
Canada.
Because it wraps around.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little, kind of like a little peninsula that Windsor's on. So we're just north of Windsor, which is kind of weird.
A mind blown.
Yeah.
So I believe your dad's a dentist and your uncle.
Yeah. So my dad and uncle, both retired now, both dentists, and they operated separate practices for most of their careers. At the twilight, they combined offices but maintained separate practices. So my dad would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. My uncle would work Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, Friday, to have separate staffs, but just saving overhead, they would work together in the same building, which is very smart.
Yeah. So why did they have two separate practices from the start? Was it like one bought one practice?
No, yeah, I think that was part of it. You know, they came out of school at different times, and by the time my uncle had gotten into practice, my dad, his practice was already established.
Okay.
And so at that point in time, there was just no way to partner because they're 3.5 years apart. Mm-hmm. And honestly, working with family is not easy.
Oh, yeah.
One of the first days of dental school, one of our instructors said, hey, how many of your parents or family members are dentists? And I don't know, a third of the class raised their hands. And he said, how many of you want to remain friendly with your family? Everyone raises their hand. He said, don't work with them. It's tough. You know, when you mix family, especially extended family, not like your significant other, you know, brothers, sisters, parents, cousins, you know, it's not always easy because there are some real things that happen in an office that if you have to go home and have dinner with that person and you're not really good on communication, things can get
sticky. Yeah, for sure.
My uncle's son, my cousin, went to dental school. So he was going through dental school at Michigan when I was in my residency. So he bought both my uncle's and my dad's practice. So the Groth Family Dental was born. So we've got Kevin Groth Family Dental, and then Christian Groth, which is orthodontist.
Yes. No, I love that. Let me ask you this. So what did your mom do?
My mother is an amazing woman, and by training is an x-ray technician. So she helped my dad get through school.
Oh, wow.
And they were married very young. And she kind of pivoted into, I want to say property management. So I think we're going to talk about it a little later. My grandfather had a very successful car dealership business, and he moved dealerships at one point in time, and he sold the building to my mother and my aunt, which they developed. There's a drugstore right now, a custom clother, and a couple other things in that building. So my mom has turned into a kind of a property manager of sorts.
That's great. Yeah.
But she's one of the most pragmatic, smartest people. Like, she's the person you call when you don't know what to do, and she has experienced it. She's super street smart, and it's amazing. And it's fun when you get into adulthood and you have these mature conversations with your parents about things that sometimes can be a little bit awkward, but they've been through it all before. And there's nobody that I lean on more than my parents for advice.
Well, that's wonderful to have that she is so like down to earth and street smart in that sense.
I'm lucky that both my parents are alive. They live half a mile from me. And so it's very easy to get in and see them whenever we need to, which is great.
Great. Christian, I know you mentioned earlier about your grandfather. He owned car dealerships.
Yes. Yep.
And I believe that had an influence too, because besides being very innovative, I think you guys are also just, wanting to deliver that higher end service too.
Yeah. So my grandfather, Charles Gesquire Jr., he passed away a few years ago, and he really set the standard, as far as I'm concerned, for what a customer service business is like. And so him and my uncles now run the businesses, but they had 3 Mercedes dealerships. And it was my first summer job working in the parts department of the Mercedes dealership. But he understood that in order to have a successful business, you have to have repeat customers. A one-time purchase does nothing. And you get repeat customers by treating them properly, by making sure that the service that you're delivering, both service department, but the service you're delivering is top-notch. And he was a huge philanthropist. He gave back a ton of money. He was the guy that everybody loved. He walked into a room. He had an infectious laugh, a great smile. He was missing a lateral. Luckily, I didn't get that gene. And he could sit down. If you had a business idea, he could sit down with you over a beer. He was a Michelob Ultra, Michelob High Life, Michelob guy. And on a cocktail napkin tell you if this was going to be a successful business or not. Wow, he just had a sense for, he's like, all right, tell me your rent, tell me your overhead, what are your thoughts? He's like, don't buy the building, rent, don't buy it, or don't start the business because it's not going to work. And it really, for me, watching how much he did for the community, it made me realize that all we have in our practices is our name. And if we're not giving back to the community, if we're not involved, what's the point? And so, the name that you have and the standing that we all have in our communities, I'm really lucky. I live 3 miles from the office. So I'm literally in the community. Some people have a long drive and they don't live in the community.
Right.
But it's allowed me in a lot of ways, I think I have a connection with half the people that come through the door. Whether they know my family, they know me, they know my kids, they know my wife, they play tennis. And it's fun. But it also makes the stakes very high. Because I see them out and about. If we do something, we screw it up, I don't give them the service that they deserve, I know about it.
Yeah.
I don't take that lightly. That's the hardest part about it is with that responsibility comes high standards.
Yes. I definitely experienced that too, treating friends, neighbors, things like that, because you just don't want to screw up, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to hear about it.
100%. And it literally is, these smiles are your signature. And if someone doesn't have a good result and they say, who is your orthodontist? It's like, oh gosh. I mean, obviously we can only control what we can control. Someone's not going to brush, someone's not going to wear the elastics. We can't own that. But we want to obviously do as good as we can do.
Definitely. Well, let me ask you this. How'd you end up down south at Emory University in Atlanta?
I went down there to swim. So,
is that right? Okay.
Yeah, I was a swimmer in high school, and I wasn't great at swimming. I was good, but I wasn't great. And there wasn't a lot of Division I programs that I would have been able to swim at, but I also didn't want to. My sister was a fantastic swimmer, and she went to Miami of Ohio on scholarship and didn't have a great experience. When you're a Division I athlete, you're being paid to swim.
Yeah.
And so she transferred out. And so, that for me, she's older than me, and it was like, I'm not going to get paid money to swim. It's not going to happen. Nobody, once you're done, makes money swimming unless your last name rhymes with Schmelps. So it's like academics are clearly first. And I went on a bunch of recruiting trips. I went on campus at Emory, and this is the place. I love the feeling of the campus. It's a gorgeous campus. The swim team was awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Everything about it said, this is the place I'm going to be for 4 years. I would do those 4 years in an instant. I absolutely loved it.
So they had a D2 or D3 program there?
Division III program, very good. Top 2, 3 in the country. My wife actually won a national championship her senior year. So it's at this point in time, we couldn't swim there. They've gotten so good. But it was a great mix between great academics and a very competitive swim program.
So I believe you met your wife, Kelly, right?
Yeah.
At Emory. Tell us that story.
Day one freshman year.
Day one.
Yeah, so we lived in the same dorm, Means Hall, and I was on floor 1. She was on the 4th floor, and the swim community is very small, and the swim team at Emory is 70 people at any given time, and so everyone knows each other very well. Mm-hmm. And Kelly and I we hit it off We both had high school relationships that we were still with, but we were thick as thieves. We same dorm for a couple of years, same major. We were training group together, so we were spending a lot of time together. And finally, junior year, we had both separated from our previous relationships, and here we are, 20-something years later, still together. So it's been amazing, dating and marrying your best friend, where you know every single skeleton before you even date, is awesome. She has an amazing family. She's an only child from Jacksonville, Florida. And so we were vacation down at her place. I knew her parents. I knew her cousins before we ever started dating.
So how long were you friends before you started dating?
So 2 years, best friends, for a year and a half, we did everything together. And I think everyone knew what was going to happen. If you look back at this, there was writing on the wall. Both of the high school relationships were long distance, a little bit rocky, to be honest with you, but it was awesome. When it kind of came together, it seems like everything funneled to that moment where we started dating.
Oh, that is super cool. Now, you guys were studying, was it neuroscience?
Neuroscience and behavioral biology.
Wow.
That's
a mouthful.
It sounds fancy. Yeah. Honestly, the reason I picked it is because we got to take fun classes like drugs and behavior and the biochemistry of sex. So, I can tell my parents,
studying.
Hey, Mom, I'm taking a class on the biochemistry of sex. So we got to see Primate Institute stuff. It's psychology with a little more science to it. So it was just a very fun major. If you're going to go into medicine, why not do something that is fun versus just biology?
Yeah. So from there, from Emory, I believe you went back to Michigan, right?
I did, yeah. And Kelly said, I'm not moving up to Michigan. So we did 4 years apart.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so she's a physical therapist. She went to the University of Florida, and she was there during the Tebow era. So she's go Gators. And so she did a gap year and then 3 years in Gainesville to do her doctorate in PT. I was in U of M for 4 years. We saw each other every 6 to 12 weeks. And honestly, if you can make it 4 years long distance, there's just about nothing that you can't get over. So
yes.
Obviously, it's a little easier now with FaceTimes and stuff that we didn't really have back then. But it allowed me to focus properly on studying. And I always knew I wanted to specialize. I just didn't know what it was. And I had all the support from Kelly. She knew that I had things I had to take care of, and we connected as much as we could, obviously.
Oh, that's amazing. I dated my wife long distance when I was in ortho residency.
Yeah,
so
it's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not. So let me ask you this, Christian. So did your dad or uncle, did they encourage you to specialize, or that was just totally something on your own?
No, I took the MCAT to go to med school. So the day I took it, I decided I didn't want to go to med school. I woke up that morning, I called my parents, and I said, I don't want to take this. I don't want to go to medical school. And my mom said, you're taking the damn test. You paid the money. You're taking the test. It was the greatest standardized test of my life because it meant nothing to me. I knew I wasn't going to go to medical school. So back then, you could only take the MCAT twice a year. And so you had people that are super stressed out. They're hyperventilating in the bathroom. They're flashcards. I'm not joking. I took a nap after the first section. I put my head down and I fell asleep because it didn't mean anything. I had people throwing pencils at me.
Right. They're like, what's wrong
These are all
with this
people I was
person?
going to school with.
Yeah.
So they're like, you bastard.
Yeah.
And my parents have never pushed me into anything I've ever done. They have been supportive of what I've wanted to do. When I was in dental school, I thought I'd do oral surgery because I was like, perfect. Medical, dental, that's kind of the perfect blend between the two. And then I realized I didn't want that life. I didn't want the life of an oral surgeon. I didn't want the high stakes life of doing surgery on people.
Right.
So I was like, cool, I like working with kids. I've been a swim coach for a while and kids are fun. My dad begged me. He's like, dude, don't go into pedo. I was like, why? He's like, just come and work for me. You'll see every single kid in my practice. It's like I send the kickers, the biters, the spitters, the screamers. They go to the pediatric dentist, but come and have a great life working with me. So at that point in time, okay, we'll give up the pedo dream. And it was in my third year with Jim McNamara as our intro to ortho teacher. And I was like, this is it. This is what I was meant to do.
Wow, he taught intro to ortho
to
the dental students.
Yeah, it was dental students. He was teaching a class, and he didn't do that for much longer. His daughter Lori took over, and it was everything I was looking for. It was relationship with patients. It was making a difference in people's lives. It was majority working with kids, and it was working this science and art blend that general dentistry has, but not in the same way.
Yeah, many of the things that appeal to me too.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. And we're so lucky.
Very blessed.
I mean, everybody has the best job in the world that loves their job, but I really don't think there are many jobs that are as amazing as what we get to do.
Oh, for sure.
The amount of people we get to touch and make sure that they're getting this confidence, the ability to have whatever you want, technology, old school, whatever, you can paint your own picture. And not a lot of jobs have that.
That is so true and so well said, Christian. So I want to ask you, because I'm just curious, so what was the program like there at Michigan? I know McNamara was involved to some extent, but I understand he wasn't the program chair, right?
Yeah, so Sunil Capella was my chair, and an amazing orthodontist, biomechanically probably one of the smartest people I've ever met, great guy. Dr. McNamara had a unique outlook on private practice and academics, clearly a proliferative researcher, but also had a very successful private practice in Ann Arbor since the mid-'70s. And so the Michigan program still is an interesting blend between really old school. Half of my cases were 0-0 tweed brackets.
Is that right?
Yeah, turret, bend it. So some people go and take tweed in Tucson.
Right.
And it's like, okay, there's your week of tweed. No, we live that every day. And it's like, 10-2-6, 10-2-7, Anchorage prep type stuff.
Wow.
And I had one instructor who he didn't use round wire. You'd bond 1s, 3s, 5s, and 6s, and you'd bend to the malocclusion on your initial visit.
I can't even fathom that. It's just
I also can't fathom that. It's amazing though. Once you can do that, once you have the background in bending the wire, there's not a lot you can't figure out. But on the flip side, you had people like Jim McNamara and Sunil Capella, Dr. Scott Conley, who were pushing the boundaries a little more technology based. And Jim, he encouraged me to do some research on SureSmile. So my research was on the robotically bent wire, and it was way outside of the standard of what would come out of Michigan. And we were just looking at outcomes, and I was interested. Frankly, I was selfishly doing this because the future practice that I was going to work for was a SureSmile practice, and I kind of wanted to know, is this technology worth it? And it was a fine study. It looked like SureSmile was more efficient than non-SureSmile.
Yeah.
But I had a really great time, and my class was phenomenal. We're still close to this day, and I just had dinner with one of my co-residents last night.
Oh, it's amazing. How many residents per year was it?
7 per year, so still is 7 per year.
That's a pretty big program.
Yeah, and we got along so well. We were really lucky that we didn't have one person in our class that was kind of left out. And we had one that had, by the time we graduated, 4 kids, came in with 2 kids, and he was still just as involved. So we got really lucky, and I don't think it happens that often where you have 7 people that just enjoy being around each other. It makes the education a lot more fun.
Yeah. Christian, I want to just circle back to something you mentioned. You were talking about your interest in SureSmile and everything, and obviously you weren't a computer guy in college or anything like that, but you seem like a pretty tech-savvy guy. So where did that interest come from to go from neuroscience right into all the techie innovation stuff? That's
a great question. I'm not sure exactly where it came from. I had a Palm Pilot when I was, middle school or high school. And I've just always been I like gadgets and toys. And I think that's kind of that engineer that what drove me to orthodontics. I like tinkering with things.
Yeah, me too.
And so I'm certainly no computer whiz, but I love what technology allows us to do. It allows us to be more efficient in our day-to-day lives if used properly. Obviously, you got things like now mobile phones and iPhones that are driving us apart. You see people walking down the street on their phones and they're running into people. But if you use a phone properly, it's a connection device to bring people closer together.
When we come back in just a moment, Christian shares how joining a forward-thinking group practice set the stage for his career, and how one bold decision about a 3D printer grew into a full-scale digital lab. Stay with us. You're listening to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. Kind support for this podcast comes from Grin. Grin is more than remote monitoring. It's a complete digital ecosystem designed to help practices work smarter, not harder. By combining AI-powered automation, real-time clinical insights, and integrated referral and engagement tools, Grin reduces inefficiencies, drives practice growth, and improves outcomes. And for patients, it means a seamless experience that keeps them connected and coming back. With Grin, providers gain smarter workflows, patients enjoy better care, and practices thrive. Learn more about how Grin transforms oral care at get-grin.com. Welcome back to our conversation with Dr. Christian Groth. I know we are going to talk about quite a few techie things today, but before we do, I do want to talk about your journey into private practice because it was a little bit of a unique setting, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that when you graduated.
So I came out and I went right into the practice that I'm currently in, TDR Orthodontics, and I got really lucky because I was able to step into a practice that, one, my uncle and my dad had worked with. So Dr. Paul Brown was my orthodontist as a kid, and it was my dad's orthodontist, and he had to retire because of back issues. He went down to head up Nova in South Florida, an amazing orthodontist, just an amazing guy. And so when he retired, my dad started working with Scott, John, and Brian. And so I selfishly got to look into that with my research. I used TDR as one of my sites for my research. And I wasn't sure I was actually going to get into the practice.
Oh, is that right?
Because they weren't looking for someone at the time. And I had been in contact with them. So Scott Tyler is an amazing swimmer. His kids are swimmers. So I've known them for a long time.
Sure.
And he at one point said, "We're not saying no to you. We're just saying no for now." So we were looking at other options.
Gotcha. And TDR was actually like an acronym, right? 3 initials.
Yeah. So it started as
partners.
Teeth by Tyler, and then it was Tyler Dumas, and then it turned to Tyler Dumas Reyes, Scott Tyler, John Dumas, Brian Reyes, and then everyone just called us TDR. So we shortened it. When I joined, TDRG, Tyler Dumas Reyes Groth, it sounds like a law firm. So we just shortened it to TDR, and it's like DHL, UPS, like. A lot of people don't even know what the letters mean. They just know DHL is a shipping company.
Right.
So
interesting.
You know, that's our brand identity was TDR, and there was no reason to change it. Even though TD and R are no longer around, it still is TDR.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You know, I think back to like 10, 15 years ago, I don't think there were many group practices with that many orthodontist partners, right? I can't think of too many.
I think we had a pretty unique thing going on. And to have that partnership last for so long, Scott and John first joined up, I want to say around 1992. And then Brian came on in the early 2000s. Brian moved to Chicago in 2016. But all 4 of us worked so well together. We all knew our lanes, and we understood that it was like a marriage. We're not always going to agree on things, but we do need to have a communication style so that we can get over any hurdles that we have. And I'm not going to say there were no blowups. We had meetings monthly, and there were arguments. But at the end, we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. We all have the same goals. And if you use that as that kind of that beacon, all right, cool. Scott, I'm going to trust you on this. I don't agree with this, but I'm going to trust you on it. It's nothing illegal, nothing immoral. It's just a different way of doing something, and let's give it a whirl. And so something that John Dumas said, which you learned from a software engineer, he said, let's just run the experiment. Let's see what happens. Worst thing happens is it doesn't work and you go back to what you were doing before. So we did a lot of that. Let's try it and see what happens. Let's do 10 cases of this. Let's try this. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You can always go back to what you're doing before.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of practices operate like that. A lot of practices are, this is what's worked in the past. I'm going to continue doing it until I need to change. We've always had the idea of challenging the status quo. Don't rest on what you've been doing, because at some point it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah. So you basically joined a very innovative practice, it sounds, too.
Yeah,
that's really open to change and new ideas.
100%. So when I joined, we were the #1 sure smile practice in the world. 100% of the patients were sure smile, 100%. And it was 3 offices when I joined. And so I hit the ground running from a technology standpoint. And it was drinking out of a fire hose, because big Invisalign practice, big sure smile practice, a lot of digital homework. So I had to become efficient in what I was doing. We don't delegate that stuff off to team members. I know a lot of practices do. They have ClinCheck coordinators, and I'm not knocking them because it works very well. And there's some amazing orthodontists that do that. But it's something that I enjoy. And frankly, I kind of micromanage. One of the few things that I really am OCD about is my aligner setups. So we did it. And I rarely take work home because I've gotten very good at doing it during the day, working through my lunches. I think it makes our treatments maybe more efficient. Certainly, there was a big marketing aspect to it. You can say, hey, it's robotic wire. Look at it, move your teeth.
I do want to mention Sure Smile because some of our younger listeners might not even really be familiar with it anymore. But from my understanding of Sure Smile, and I wasn't a provider, but you would sort of scan the patient, I believe, or maybe even take an impression back then, as you're near the finishing stages, and they would robotically bend, was it a stainless steel or TMA wire?
Yeah, you would place the brackets, and at some point you would scan. So they actually developed the first full arch intraoral scanner.
Is that right?
Yeah, and you had to use an opaquing agent, so it was essentially titanium dioxide suspended in alcohol. It burned like hell. And so, because the scanners couldn't pick up metal very well, and you needed very, very high detail in this because they would register the brackets manually. So they have an STL file of the bracket, a very high definition one. And you would do essentially an aligner setup. You put the teeth where you want them to be. And then from there, they would reverse engineer a wire to put the teeth where they are. there are some great pros to that. We all have tendencies on bracket placement. I know that my lower premolars are typically mesial down. And so the wire can help overcome that without having to reposition the bracket. And even then, sometimes you reposition the bracket and you put it in the exact same spot. Right?
Guilty.
You take it off.
Guilty.
You take the cement off and then you look at it like, yep, same exact spot. That wire is flush, totally flat. It also really helped in a group practice where we're co-treating patients. So we don't have separate patient populations. So I could walk in and I see a patient that I've never met before and they're 12 months in to an 18-month treatment plan. And we have a fixed case where the wire is already designed. I just got to get them to the final goal. The problem was, and still is, it does make some cases more complicated. It's not inexpensive. I did hear this weekend that they are trying to revitalize the wires a little bit.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
It's kind of gone on the back burner when Dentsply bought SureSmile. They focused a lot on aligners, but I think that they're realizing that the aligner market is very, very saturated.
Yes.
They have a super unique product in the wires. No one else is doing it. And I think it'd be great to bring it back. So you had a copper NiTi. That was the original one. So Rohit Sachdeva was one of the founders of the company, and you had a custom bent copper NiTi wire. And then you had a TMA and an L-Gilloy, which a steel, essentially.
Yeah.
So you could get whatever wire you wanted, and you could get a 16 squared, 1622, 1725. And the bends in these things were bananas. You really learn how bad your brackets were placed when you see how many bends are put in those wires to get to ideal.
That's wild. Let me ask you this, just because, again, I don't have a lot of experience with SureSmile, but what happens if the patient broke the wire?
The wire breakage really wasn't a major issue.
Oh, really?
Bracket breakage is a problem because
Then you have to retrofit, right?
Exactly. So you either use the wire as a template to put it back on, or you would do a bracket update scan to get a new wire. So there were issues with the system, no doubt. And honestly, the reason we went away with it is we found that it made as many cases harder as it made easier. And then a lot of cases, it didn't seem to matter. So why are we spending a bunch of money on a custom wire when now we have indirect bonding systems that do the same thing but without all those intricate bends in the wire?
Gotcha. So Christian, at what point did you guys sort of come up with the idea of starting a lab?
So when I joined the practice in 2012, we were the big SureSmile practice, and they had come to us with this thought of doing an aligner module. So having aligners coming out of the same software as wires. So we worked hand in hand with them and maybe a half a dozen other users to try to figure out how to make this work. And we were one of the test sites for these aligners, which now is a product. And we were printing a lot of models out of a lab in Ann Arbor. And at the end of 2013, we had printed something like $85,000 in models.
Wow.
So I went to Scott and John, and this is one of these examples of where they trusted me. I said, guys, we should be doing this. There's no reason why we shouldn't be owning the printer. We have to. $85,000 is more than what the printer costs. So in 1 year, we'll pay for it.
Yeah.
It was the stupidest, most naive thing I've ever said, because it's like a Keurig coffee machine. It's like you spend $200 on the Keurig machine, and then you spend $1,000 on pods over the next year. Whereas if you're brewing your own coffee, it's going to be a lot cheaper. They don't get you on the printer. They get you on the resin and the support costs.
The supplies.
Yeah. So
reusables.
We bought one printer, and my grandfather had a warehouse where cars were stored either for customers or off-lease cars before getting picked up. So we rented the front office space. And Nick, who was still on our team at the lab, he was our employee number one. All we did was models, and it was word of mouth. We've never marketed. And they said, hey, Chris, we got a printer, excess capacity. If you like models printed, we're essentially just covering our costs. We're not making any money on this. And then you tell a friend and you tell a friend, and now we get 2 printers, 4 printers, 6 printers. We've changed spaces now 4 times. We're in about 12,000 square feet, 30 full-time team members. We've got 2 metal printers and 3 automated printers, 4 Stratasys, high-capacity printers. It's been an amazing process. Everyone listening, if you're an orthodontist, call your lab and say thank you. It is a really thankless business. And we, the lab, I don't say me, the labs, break their backs to make us happy. And we very rarely get thanks.
That's such a shame.
It really is, because it's kind of like a crown in dentistry. What you cement into a patient, you didn't make typically. It's the lab. And so if you do a great veneer, the dentist gets the accolades, but it's actually the lab that did it.
Right.
So we take it very seriously, putting out good products, and it's a big deal, and it's not easy, but it's also, they put up with so many wild things.
I bet.
And you're putting out fires and timelines, and But we learned a lot about it, and we had no idea what was into the lab industry. It's a tough business. Luckily, it's a great community. All the lab owners, we're essentially all friends. So
is that right?
We share information. We help each other out. We have a printer go down. We call up, Christian Sauerman at Neo or Mike Wright at ODL and say, hey, can you help me out? And they do. They say, yeah, I'll bend some Hollies for you because you got someone who's sick. I'll send some labial bows. You just send me the models. And it's a really supportive community. You would think that we're all kind of in competition,
right.
But we're really not. And it's been really the coolest part about this is this community of people that we now have. And we see each other at meetings. It's really very fun. And we almost openly share ideas. Obviously, there are some things that we have that we think are unique that we're not going to share everything.
Right.
But the things that are out there that we're all struggling with, typically it's like, hey, how are you dealing with this? And it's like, oh, we kind of figured that out. And it's not a secret, so we'll tell you.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, actually, I was hanging with Christian at Neolab booth earlier today. So, yeah,
they're a great lab.
That's great that you guys are so collaborative together. I want to ask you this because I think you guys really became known for like pioneering the 3D printed metal appliances, at least here in the U.S. Is that right? Were you guys the first lab?
We think we were the first to bring it to market. Whether we were the first to actually test it out, there's some debate on that, but we think that we were the first to actually bring this as a product that we were selling to people. We've learned a lot. Simon Graf and Stefano Negrini in Europe really did pioneer this, and we learned a lot from them, but it was a hard onboarding. I don't know if you do printed metal appliances.
I've done a couple with Dynaflex.
Yeah. There's a process that we had to learn to cement these, and we had about a 50% failure rate at first.
Is that right?
And Scott was about to pull the plug. He said, I'm not doing these anymore. I'm sick of these coming out. I'm sick of making parents bring their kid back 3 days later. So we had to figure out the bonding protocol. And we worked with Paul Ganji at Reliance with what would make the most sense. And we finally figured it out. There are multiple ways that these stay in, but at first it was tough. And the designs have changed. Everything has gotten easier. I'll never go back to a traditional expander now because these fit every single time. I think we have probably cemented more than anybody because we've been doing it the longest. And I don't think I've had a single one that didn't fit because these are designed on a direct scan of the mouth.
Interesting. And I think one of the biggest benefits too is the patient doesn't need to come in for separators, right?
No separators, and you can design things that you physically can't design from a traditional appliance standpoint. It's a quick procedure. I've timed these. They take about 2 minutes start to finish to get in. Frankly, my team does it. They're awesome. We always use 4 hands. I walk in, the appliance is already cemented, and the kid's out the door. So it's a really great patient-centric way. Yes, they cost a little bit more money, but I think that you save everything on the back end by not having to deal with separators, and especially with appliances that don't fit great.
Yeah.
Banded appliances don't always fit great. Yeah, and there's nothing worse than having a kid that's ready to go, and you got to send it back because the bands are too big or bands are too small or something.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
We're talking about patient experience before, right?
Exactly. Our team loves it. Our patients, I'm not going to say they love it because nobody loves an expander, but they don't mind it, I should say.
Let's keep it real, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I believe you've been more recently like integrating AI into the lab too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So it's a great company called CADflow. Full disclosure, we are investors in this company. And CADflow is essentially a dental AI company. And so they can automate processes where you take raw scans and they will base models, they automate bracket removal. And now recently they've been doing automated expander design. So we just, John Dumas' son, Joey, shout out Joey Dumas, just wrote our lab management software from scratch. And it's really cool because essentially you design an appliance. Once we validate it, we confirm that the scan matches with what you want. We hit go. It goes into the AI design. It comes back from AI design a couple minutes later. Then it's immediately ready to print, as opposed to pulling the file, loading it into a software, designing it, validating it, exporting it, getting it on the printer. Our team can essentially process hundreds of these a day, and they all get done automatically. A little bit of tweaking every once in a while, but the AI process and the automation is the next step of everything in what we're doing, but especially the lab business.
Right. And that's so interesting because it really is about speeding up that workflow and streamlining the workflow, right? It's not like replacing lab technicians, but just helping them be able to be more efficient.
Yeah, we've been able to shift designers into fabrication. Our bottleneck is fabrication instead of design. It used to be the designers were the ones that were holding up the entire process. Now with the AI design, and we still have the old workflow. So if you've got a very unique appliance that you can't do with an AI design, we go through the old workflow. So we have both going, but we don't need 6 designers. We need 2, and we can put them into other areas of the lab.
Congratulations on all that, Christian. I want to change gears here a little bit and talk about something I know you're pretty passionate about, and that's aligners, right?
Yep.
So, Christian, the aligner world is really changing. I think, now that there's many more players out there, there's maybe a little more parity than there was like in 2015 as opposed to 2025, right?
Yeah.
Many different product offerings out there. Some cool new innovative things coming out.
Yep.
What aligners are you using in the practice? Anything new on the horizon?
Yeah, so I think we're in a really interesting world right now with aligners in that we used to be, essentially there was one game in town. And for better or for worse, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Now you've got options. And I think that's great. Options mean competition, which means either prices don't get driven up as much or it makes people innovate. And in order to stay relevant, you have new materials, new attachments, new mechanics, all these different things that make us better. And it also, I think it forces companies to come to the table and say, what do you need? Instead of them dictating what's going on, they come to us and they say, hey, what would make your life easier? And I think the angel button is a great example of it. And no longer do we have to use one option because that's the only option in town. You can use it what's best for you and your patients. And you could use all of them if you wanted. So if you wanted to use Angel for one case and then Clarity for another and Invisalign for another, you can do that. And you can do it because we have, for the most part, scanner agnosticism. And each system has their own pros and cons. Mm-hmm. I'm using Clarity aligners for most of my cases. I'd say 98% of my cases. Honestly, I made an emotional switch back in 2018. There's no lie. Invisalign or Align had, I think, a little blunder with their investment with Smile Direct Club.
Right.
I didn't want to support it. It's not knocking the company. It was what they thought was best for investors. And I think they actually thought it was a good thing to help control a negative
right. Thing. They wanted to have a seat at the table.
100%.
Right? Yeah.
And I don't necessarily disagree with it. I don't think that it worked out the way they expected it to.
Yeah.
So I made an emotional decision. And Clarity aligners were not good in the beginning. They weren't. But now with more time and research, you've got these great aligner options. And the latest with Clarity is the precision grip attachment, the 3D printed attachment.
Yeah, let's talk about those. I'm super curious because I think one of the most requested features that probably Invisalign users gave for so many years was pre-filled attachments.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're the first to come to market with it. I'm sure everyone else is working on it. It's just a matter of time until someone else replicates or has an adjustment to it. It's essentially indirect bonding for attachments. So you have a template that has pre-cured resin, 3D printed resin. It's not a ceramic resin, it's a resin. And it's a very simple etch primer bond. It's flash free, so you don't have anything to clean up. It's really the first time that we've had an attachment that actually looks like it should. So if you take a scan immediately after you bond a traditional attachment, it doesn't look like anything.
Right.
Like it's an amorphous blob.
Yeah.
And we haven't really, I think it's one of the things that we haven't recognized up until now because we have no other option.
Right.
Is how is that affecting our aligner mechanics? If you have flash or you have an attachment that's inaccurate, your pushing surfaces may not be where you think they are. So how many of the inaccurate or inefficient movements are due to an attachment that's not in the right spot or not the right shape? I tell people this is like a rock climbing wall. And as you're climbing up a rock climbing wall, if you expect the hold to be in a certain position or a certain shape, you're great. But as soon as it moves or as soon as the shape changes, you're going to fall off the wall. So if your aligner thinks it's pushing on something that's not there, how much of the lag in movements, you say, hey, in extrusion, it expresses at 50%. How much is that because the first 5 or 6 trays, the attachment wasn't actually engaging in the aligner?
Interesting, yeah.
Whereas if you can engage immediately because you have an attachment that's exactly where it's supposed to be, now we actually are seeing movements that are more efficient. This is complete theory. We need research on this.
Gotcha.
What I know for sure, these go on faster. There's no flash. They look beautiful. They're on where they're supposed to be. How that changes what we do, honestly, it's to be seen. Everything needs to be thatched out with research. I love them. I actually placed them on myself on Wednesday.
Oh, is that right?
I felt like a real dentist. I cemented an appliance on a patient under sedation on Wednesday morning. Went to the pediatric office. It's a special needs patient that needed a fixed bite plate. And I walk in, I was like, this is like a throwback to dental school. And so I got to the office early. I had these aligners that were sitting in there for a week. I'm a little bit of a deep bite. And so I'm hitting my interiors a little bit heavy. Designed some aligners, and I figured, let's put the attachments on. So I'm sitting in the chair in a mirror putting attachments on myself. My team was wondering, who the hell am I working on? What you don't realize, if you've never worked on yourself, how much you drool
Is that right?
when you're sitting up and you're not laying back and the saliva goes to the back of your mouth.
Yeah.
I'm drooling all down my chin trying to get these things on.
Funny.
I recorded the whole thing with my meta glasses, and I think it took like 6 minutes to put these on, no flash.
Great.
And it's pretty incredible to be able to do that, etch, prime, put on, and light cure.
I want to ask you this because you mentioned the benefits of indirect bonding attachments from a mechanical standpoint, but what about just from like staining? Like I know sometimes we have attachments that have like some porosity to it and that'll like pick up staining. Are they better in that sense?
So the research that Solventum is giving us is yes, they're great. I can say what I've seen is they don't stain, not like traditional attachments, but I think a lot of times the stain is coming from the primer around the attachment. It's really yellow.
Right.
So if you have too much of that, that's still an issue that will pop up. They have some studies of, hey, if you soak these in mustard or red wine or whatever for 7 days, and it's like, I don't know anyone who's soaking their teeth in mustard. But
you don't do that, Christian?
I try not to. And I'm not a wine drinker, so but the bourbon probably is soak it long enough, it'll turn brown. Yeah, so anecdotally, I'm not seeing the staining. Honestly, it wasn't a major issue, in my practice. It does occasionally happen where someone comes in with just some nasty attachments, around the attachments, gets super stained. I think that the potential for that is still there because you have a margin between a material and the tooth, which can always pick up a stain.
But they seem better.
I do think it's an improvement.
When we come back, in just a moment, Christian takes us inside his playbook for tackling deep bite cases with aligners, and then pulls back the curtain on direct printed aligners, AI, and the innovations that AAO is watching most closely. Stay with us. You're listening to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. Kind support for this podcast comes from KLON Ortho. What if your braces appointments felt as efficient as aligner appointments, but with more control and less digital homework? The KLON Custom Digital Solution combines digital indirect bonding with a custom prescription delivered through KLON software and a full portfolio of custom brackets for even more flexibility. This clinically driven system reduces repositioning, shortens doctor-intensive chair time, and gives you more control from start to finish. Request a demo at KLONortho.com. And we're back to our conversation with Dr. Christian Groth. Let me ask you this, Christian. I know we were talking about the Clarity aligners. Let's talk a little bit about mechanics and how you like to do your setups, because I know you're really passionate about addressing deep bites, right?
What's really fun now is I think that in the aligner world, there's almost no case that we can't treat with aligners. And it sometimes takes being creative. Sometimes it takes some hybrid approaches. But one of the types of cases that I think we all would shy away from are these deep bite cases. It's like, I can't do that. I can't get that bite open. It's so much more efficient in braces. And I'm not going to dispute that. I think that it probably still is more efficient in braces. However, I do think that now we have some tools that allow us to approach bracket efficiency. And for me, it's the force plastic with the Clarity aligners. So, for those of you who are not aware, Clarity aligners has two different plastics, the force and the flex. They're actually the same plastic, just different thicknesses, so they have different stiffness. And I think about this like doing segmental mechanics with brackets. So in a deep bite case, I will start in the force plastic, the thicker, stiffer plastic, and I'll do 10 to 12 stages of pure intrusion. That's all I'm doing. A lot of times with backup with some class 2 elastics to help with the posterior extrusion movements. And when you think about either crowding resolution or class 2 correction, if you've got a deep bite and you have anterior coupling, no correction is going to happen. So in my mind, the key to these tough cases is opening that bite before you start anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
So 10 to 12 stages, intrude only, get clearance, get some overjet, and then we switch over to the flex plastic, and that's when we start all of our other movements. So I do no crowding resolution, no expansion, nothing else in these first 10 stages but pure intrusion.
And you're intruding 3 to 3, 4 to 4?
Typically 3 to 3. Sometimes it's 2 to 2. It really just depends on where it needs to be. Yeah. So like, upper anterior might be 2 to 2, lower it might be 3 to 3. Everyone's a little unique in that standpoint. I have to say this was not my idea. I got it from Shane Langley in
Shane.
Alabama.
Yeah.
He's an amazing, amazing orthodontist. So I actually call it the Langley Protocol because we were talking about it one time in a meeting, and I said, that makes so much sense. Let's do it.
So he's intruding. Let me just clarify something. The teeth maybe are still crowded. He's just intruding. He's not like round tripping, leveling everything out. And then, wow.
Yeah. So my setup, it is just pure intrusion. That's all you do.
Wow.
And it takes a little bit, especially on the tech side, to kind of get that because they want to start working on crowding resolution as you get space.
Right.
And I say, no, only intrusion, upper, lower, 3 to 3, 10 stages. Stage 11, switch to flex, start all other movements and continue the intrusion.
I like that because I sort of do the opposite, right? I tend to sort of just level in a line and continually open the bite.
Yep.
But what happens sometimes, and I'm an Invisalign user, but you get to that refinement stage and the bite usually doesn't open as much, even though I try to over-engineer it.
Yep.
But at that point, their teeth are pretty straight. So their like motivation to wear these aligners is less. And when you have a flexible plastic like the Smart Track, it's still quote unquote fits. So they're like, well, the trays are fitting. They're probably not wearing them as much as they should.
Yeah.
So to have a stiffer plastic, I think is really brilliant.
And you probably are running into anterior interferences.
Right.
As you're resolving that crowding and you're not opening the bite as fast as you think that you're going to, that's where that posterior open bite that is so notorious with aligners comes in. It's one thing that I've noticed. I'm seeing far fewer of those posterior occlusion disruptions when you're focusing on the anterior bite, the torque, and the depth of the bite.
I love that. Christian, I know you mostly use Clarity aligners, but I believe more recently you got involved with Lux Creo. Is that right? And direct printing aligners?
Yeah, so I'm on the CTech committee with the AAO, and the Tech Select group is essentially a group of products that have all been validated by the CTech committee, and it's a kind of a pricing discount group, if you will. So Lux Creo came to the table, wanted to be in the Tech Select group, and nobody had any experience with the printer. So myself and Brandon Owen agreed to test the printer out. Both of us have plenty of experience in 3D printing. And so Lux Creo was kind enough to send us loaners to trial for 60 days. Essentially, we just wanted to make sure that it was a legit system, make sure that it was easy to use, everything that they advertised it to be, that it was. And it was so good that we bought it. And we had no intention of buying it, and I have no financial interest in this. We paid for the printer, and it has been, of all the printers that we've tried, it's the easiest printer to go from file to print. They worked really hard on what they call the one-click system. And you literally, like if you're trying to print retainers, you import, you click one click, go, and the supports, it's set up on the platform. It's really pretty incredible how they do it. We print a lot of bite splints. And Greg at the lab is our bite splint guy. And he said, I spent about half an hour setting this up on our Sprint Ray. And the Sprint Ray resin is actually, the Sprint Ray bite splint resin, the Night Guard Soft, is the best out there. It's amazing. And shout out to Voxel Solutions. They're the best out there, and they've helped us a ton get up and running on this.
Voxel's great.
We love them. So that Night Guard resin from the Sprint Ray is awesome. But he said it takes me about half an hour to set up a full build tray to get all the supports right. And the one click is done in about 30 seconds. He said that would save so much time. And it's the same output, which is great. So the big push is for direct print retainers and aligners.
Right. It's the holy grail, so to speak.
Honestly, I'm hesitant on them. I'm not sure.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So why do you say that?
I love the idea. I don't think anyone will deny that the idea of eliminating the model is great from an environmental standpoint, from a workflow standpoint. Everything is awesome. But we also have to remember that we're putting an appliance in a patient's mouth that is on mucosal membranes that will uptake anything very quickly. And I'm concerned. I don't have necessarily proof for this. There are some studies that are a little suggestive of leaching, but we need more. We need more studies to validate or disprove it. And none of us want to put something in a patient's mouth that's going to cause problems. Never. Right. There's not a single person or a single company that wants that. But intent and impact are different. So I've done some. I certainly have. I think it's an amazing workflow. I've worn them for myself.
Okay.
The pressure that these put on the teeth is not the same as a thermoformed appliance, but I think that we're going to have to completely change our mindset and how we do it with these.
Okay.
But I'm not pushing hard on it yet. And it's not a knock against Lux Creo or any of the other great companies, Graphy, who are making these resins. It is simply, this is such a bleeding edge thing. I typically jump in with bleeding edge things, but this is one that I think that the stakes are a little bit higher, and I want to be a little more careful before I go full on.
Besides some potential like biocompatibility considerations, is there any other challenges with the direct print aligners?
The biggest issue right now is the processing. So you need to have a software that you can do the setup, obviously. So ULab, Archform, there are others out there that you can do the setup. you need to have a PTS file with a trim line to make this efficient. Because if you're doing this manually, so you load it into the LuxCreo software, and it takes you 5 to 8 minutes per aligner to design it. And if you've got 10 aligners top and bottom, if it's 5 minutes per aligner, that's over an hour of time that you're going to be designing this or paying someone to design it, which is terribly inefficient. To do it manually, to print the model in thermoform is way faster. The AI component of this, which will automate this, is dependent on a trim line that's generated in the aligner software. Mm-hmm. That goes way faster because you hit a button and you walk away and it does it on its own. So there are still some things from a software standpoint that's being worked out. I think that there needs to be more automation. The big benefit to direct print is you can modulate the material properties. You can make it thicker or thinner.
I never thought about that.
So you want to do some expansion. And I want to make that a little bit stronger in the posterior for the expansion, but I don't want to have an issue in the anterior because maybe you've got a lot of undercuts. So you can thicken the posterior, thin the anterior, or you can build in bite blocks that are really thick. That really should be automated. And everyone's working on it. This is not something they don't know. It's no secret. It's the first iteration right now of these softwares. And as they get to version 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, all of these things are going to be automated because there are very few of us that want to sit down and tinker with this. Mm-hmm. The one thing that Invisalign did initially incredibly well, and everyone has tried to emulate it, is they've taken hard processes and made them very easy. They've made them look very easy, I should say. They're still hard on the back end. So that's what the direct print companies need to do, is they need to take these very difficult processes and they need to make it easy for us, because I certainly don't have the time to sit there and mess around with any given aligner because I want to thicken it here, I want to put a button there, I want to do this. It needs to be, I know that these teeth are moving in this direction. Do you want to employ the expansion protocol, which makes the thickness in the lingual posterior 0.8 millimeters instead of 0.5? Cool, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that we're so bleeding edge. The people that are doing this, I love that they're testing this out. I really do, because I want to see how this goes. This is one that I'm on the bench just a little bit to see how things thatch out.
Well, very interesting. We're going to keep an eye on that for sure. Christian, I want to mention, because we were at the AAO meeting, obviously you're a member of CTEC. For maybe those who aren't familiar with CTEC, why don't you give a little more information about that?
Yeah, CTEC is the Committee on Technology with the AAO, and it is made up of both doctors and industry experts. So we've got some non-doctors who are very much in the tech world that are integrated into the orthodontic space. The CTEC committee really tries to stay on top of any technological things coming up. And there are things that we've been working on for a long time that may never come to fruition. Universal case transfer. So let's say you're an Ortho 2 user in your practice. I'm a Dolphin user. You have a patient transferring from you to me, a universal language to get the data from you to me.
So smart.
You got to get a bunch of companies to play nice in the sandbox, and it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
But it's also as simple as looking at potential AI ramifications. There was the Smile Doctors doctor meeting that we had a couple weeks ago in Louisville. Someone asked a question about AI scribing in the exam room, which I think is amazing. There are tools that they'll cut out all the chatter and talk about swimming and soccer, and it keeps it just to your diagnosis and treatment planning in the medical terms. But the question is, who owns the data? Is it the AI company owning the data? If you're talking about patient data and integrating into your practice management software, I don't know if that's a great thing to have someone else owning our data.
Right.
I don't know the answers to it, but it was a question of, we don't want to do anything until we know that we own the data, because you don't want to let that just go out there and be in the ether with potential patient-sensitive information.
Oh, for sure.
So the CTEC is a group of people that we meet several times a year, and we, anything that pops up, the board of trustees will sometimes give us projects. We'll sometimes work with the ADA on different things, radiation guidelines. More recently, in the last couple of years, the Tech Select is that group of companies within CTEC that are offering to give back to the AAO. So I believe it's a 3% donation of sales back to the AAO, which is amazing to give back to the organization. And they guarantee best pricing. So, you'll get the best price on the CTEC Tech Select website, which is a offshoot of the AAO website. So
that's so great.
You have to be a member, so you have to log in, and then you can go directly through there. And they've got some amazing companies on that. And we love the partnership. The fact that they're willing to give back to us is awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I mean, it sounds super interesting.
Yeah, so, you can save on, if you're buying a new printer, you can save not an insignificant amount of money buying the exact same printer, honestly, from the same place, but you do it through the CTEC partnership, the Tech Select partnership.
Christian, I want to change gears here for a second. We've talked about a lot of great tech and innovation today, but I understand you mentioned your wife, Kelly, before. Big swim family. You have 2 kids, is that right?
I do, yep. Reese in 6th grade, 11, and TJ in 3rd grade, 9.
Awesome. And are they into swimming too?
They both swim, and Reese is more into soccer right now.
Okay.
Reese she's a gifted athlete. She's 11 and 5'9". She's got my height. So she could be really good at a lot of sports.
Yeah.
She is an amazing swimmer. Right now, she has a passion for soccer, and we love watching her. She plays goalie, and she's an amazing goalie, and it's really fun to watch. Would Kelly and I, as former collegiate swimmers, love for her to be a full-time, big-time swimmer? Yeah, absolutely. But anyone with kids, we want them to do what they love. And so neither Kelly and I are going to push her into that. So honestly, soccer games are a little more fun. It's an hour and 10 minutes start to finish. I'm not sitting in a hot, sweaty pool for 6 hours. I have a huge passion for swimming because it was such a big part of my life, but I've really come to enjoy soccer.
And one of the things I love too is you're really passionate about photography, as am I. And for those of you who haven't seen Christian's shots, I mean, unbelievable. You do a lot, I think, while you're traveling, right?
Yes, I typically bring my camera when I go. I didn't bring it this weekend because it's a 24-hour trip essentially. But when I travel, I pop it in. I'm a Canon guy, so I've got a Canon R6 Mark II and an R7. It really started with kids' sports. Reese was getting into soccer, and so I brought my camera along. I got a couple nice lenses for it. And now I just pack it when I go. It's fun. It's a fun way to walk around, especially if I'm alone, walk around a new city and just take some pictures. It gives me a little more interaction. I think that the creative process of post-processing those pictures is really kind of cool. You take a picture that it looks so-so, and then you run it through the Lightroom process, and it really pops.
Oh, it totally does. Yeah, no, I love it too. Now, that Canon model, is that like a mirrorless, I would imagine?
Yep. So the mirrorless, I did... In residency, I can't remember the Canon Rebel, a T something or other, and you go into mirrorless is awesome.
It is. I switched from Nikon to Sony. I have the Alpha series. And
the mirrorless is great.
And I love you do a lot of like sunsets and moonshots and all that great stuff.
The moons are so fun. They're so easy. It's one of those things that people don't realize how easy. If you've got a long enough lens, it's really easy. You also don't realize how fast the moon moves. You think that you need to have a long exposure time to do it, but it'll be blurry. You need to go pretty quick.
Yes.
And most people don't realize that, but if you watch the moon long enough, you can see it move. 5 minutes here or there, it's moving across the sky.
Yeah. Plus, if you do a long shot, it just like way overexposes the moon, on a fully lit night.
100%. Yeah. You don't realize how bright it is.
Well, speaking of the moon, I understand that you guys are big into Halloween, right?
We are. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about
that. Good transition. Full moon.
Thank you.
So when we were in residency, everyone kind of took a holiday. And so someone took St. Patrick's Day, and they would do the St. Patrick's Day party. Someone did a little Christmas party. Someone did Valentine's Day. And we just kind of said, hey, let's do Halloween. And it started out as a pumpkin carving thing with the residents. And it slowly got a little bigger, went from pumpkin carving to, okay, we'll do it in costumes. And then when we moved over into Bloomfield, we have our own space, so we can decorate a little bit, and then it gets a little bit bigger. And so now it's to the point where we change the theme every year, and I build most of the props. And my favorite so far has been a pirate theme where we built the bow of a pirate ship in the front yard.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it was I think it was about 15 feet tall, and it was made to look like it was coming out of the lawn, and we had smoke and pirate skeletons and sounds, and I had cannon fire going on. Honestly, it's kind of a fun marketing tool because everyone knows that we're the Halloween house, and we've moved 3 times in the same neighborhood. And when we moved, people were like, where'd you go? It's like, you're gonna have to find out where we live. It's still in the neighborhood. And so they find the Halloween house every year. We don't put it out until October 1st. And almost always November 1st, by the time people wake up, I've broken most of it down.
Is that right?
I stay up, or I'm up early on November 1st. You can only be the crazy Halloween house for so long.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be that guy. I love my neighbors. We have amazing neighbors, and they put up with it. They actually love it.
You don't want to be Thanksgiving and still have the Halloween decorations out.
Yeah, and we don't do a crazy Christmas display. People are like, oh, what are you going to do for Christmas? Like, just simple lights. So we throw a huge party, 120, 130 people come to the house, and costumes are required. You cannot come without a costume. We will put you in costume if you show up without a costume, and we've got a room in our basement, which is the Halloween room, and we'll go down and we will get it for you. So everyone knows, and we do a costume competition, so people get into it. It's super fun.
Well, I am showing up with no costume, so I can.
You'll come Buddy the Elf. I'll get Buddy the Elf for you. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Christian, it's about that time. I know we got to wrap it up, get back to the meeting. You got a flight to catch later.
I do, yes.
Before we go, I believe we have some speaking engagements coming up, right?
Yeah. So we'll be the NISO meeting in Florida. I believe that's going to be in Naples.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, down in your neck of the woods.
All right, I'll have to come see
which
you.
would be great. And then also in November, the TPAO, which is in Cologne, Germany.
Okay, yeah, what's TPAO?
TPAO, they have a big footprint in Europe. They are an aligner agnostic aligner teaching institution, if you will. And so it's a really cool meeting. This one, anyone who is interested in advanced aligner mechanics, this is a great meeting. This is like, I'm like the small potatoes guy. I'm going to show up and talk deep bite in class 2 cases.
Oh, nice.
But like, some of these doctors that are doing this, it's like, gosh, dude, what you do is incredible. So I'm going to be the guy with the least amount of experience who's in awe of what everyone is doing. But it is Thanksgiving weekend in Germany. So we'll be the whole family's going to go and we'll have a Thanksgiving dinner in Germany.
Okay, there you go. Christian, before we go, if people do want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Dr. Groth, Dr.Groth, and if anyone wants to email me, groth@motorcitylabworks.com. Those will both get a hold of me, direct email and my Instagram.
Great. Also, just want to mention a couple websites. If people are interested in learning more about precision grip attachments, I believe it's go.solventum.com/getagrip. And please check out Motor City Labworks and thank your lab.
Thank you for everything. Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Yeah, no, I had such a fun time with you, Christian. And thank you also for this delicious double-double.
The double-double.
Let's cheers.
One more time.
Cheers to you, Christian. Thanks so much, everybody. That's all for this episode of the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. On this episode, you discovered how running the experiment can open the door to new opportunities in your practice, why breaking free from aligner brand dependency gives orthodontists more flexibility, and how direct 3D printed aligners and AI are beginning to shape the future of orthodontics. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to follow Illuminate so you never miss a podcast. A very special thanks to our sponsors for this episode. That's Grin and KLO and Ortho. And we're proud to support orthodontic innovation through our Illuminate Spotlight feature. Today highlighting the Aligner Intensive Fellowship by Drs. Jonathan Nikozizis and Maz Moshiri. Thanks so much for listening to the Illuminate Orthodontic Podcast. As always, this podcast would not be possible without the Illuminate team. That's Skylar Adler, joined by Johnny Mitchell on the mixing console, and Tom O'Grady on the Fender Rhodes electric piano. Until next time, this is Dr. Chris Setta signing off. If you've listened this far, you just found our hidden bonus content and outtakes. Well, welcome to the podcast. How are you today, Christian?
Doing great. We are live.
We are
excited about this.
Yes. Hold on. Let me.
Oh boy.
I got a notification on here. We'll start that over. We'll start that over. Okay.
Yeah.
Skylar, we're punching back in. See, it's so weird that Skylar's actually here because he's never here. And
normally you're giving
I leave
notes.
these little audio notes. So I'm like, now I can look at you. This is very odd. It was funny before I was just doing the podcast voice to mess with him, like on the escalator, like, when we come back. And he's like, well, this is so weird. I hear this voice all the time. Christian, I believe you grew up in the Detroit area. I can't even say Detroit right now. This is an outtake right here. Jesus. All right. Excellent. Thanks so much, everybody. I said it again because my voice cracked.